We relentlessly chase a future state called happiness, a destination always seemingly just over the horizon. This isn't about denial of difficulty, but a reevaluation of our internal compass for joy. Final question. What if, just for today, you chose to believe that everything you need to be fundamentally content is already within you and around you? How would you live this day differently? And what quiet joys might you discover that were previously hidden in plain sight? Imagine the weight lifted if happiness wasn't another item on your endless to-do list. The quiet satisfaction of simple existence is often drowned by the noise of ambition. What if the treasures you seek are not in distant lands, but in your own backyard? The pervasive cultural narrative tells us we are incomplete until we achieve certain milestones. But is this narrative serving us, or is it merely a self-perpetuating cycle of desire? The present moment holds a richness that our future-focused minds often entirely miss. True contentment might be less about addition and more about subtraction of illusions. Could it be that the lock to happiness doesn't require a key, but simply realization? The mind, in its quest for security, often projects joy into an imagined, better future. But what if this pursuit is a grand illusion, a trick of perception? This journey explores shifting from "what if I get" to "what if I already am." Consider the gentle unfolding of a flower, not striving, but simply becoming its full expression. Is our societal definition of success inextricably, and perhaps mistakenly, linked to happiness? The relief of acknowledging enough can be a profound liberation from endless wanting. What if happiness is not an exotic, rare fruit, but the common bread of daily life? The subtle joys are often the most sustainable, yet they are easily overlooked. Our internal landscape shapes our experience of the external world more than we realize. The stories we tell ourselves about what happiness should be can blind us to what is. This exploration invites you to pause the chase and simply observe what is present. Could the feeling of not being there yet be the primary obstacle to being here now? Consider the possibility that happiness isn't something to be found, but something to be uncovered. This is not a dismissal of goals, but a reordering of priorities regarding inner peace. The quiet miracle of existence itself is a profound, often unacknowledged source of wonder. We search for complex solutions, but simplicity often holds the most elegant truths about joy. If happiness were a frequency, perhaps we need only to tune our inner receiver. The capacity for deep contentment may lie dormant within, awaiting our gentle attention. This isn't about passively accepting unhappiness, but actively recognizing hidden contentment currently available. The feeling of lack is often a louder voice than the quiet whisper of enough. Could it be that the search for happiness is the very thing that keeps it at bay? By constantly looking forward, we might be stepping over the very thing we desire. What if the key is not to change our circumstances, but to change our perception of them? What if contentment is already woven into the fabric of your present existence? Let us explore the ancient paths that lead not to a distant happiness, but an immediate one. The pervasive idea that happiness is a destination, a prize won after arduous struggle, is deeply ingrained in modern consciousness. We are often told that fulfillment lies just beyond the next achievement, the next acquisition, or the next personal transformation. This continuous deferral of contentment can create a state of perpetual striving, where the present moment is merely a stepping stone to an idealized future, a future that, like a mirage, recedes as we approach it. This cultural conditioning often begins early, shaping our understanding of success and well-being. We internalize the narrative that to be happy, we must constantly improve, accumulate, and conquer. The media, societal expectations, and even well-meaning advice can reinforce this notion, creating a silent pressure to always be on the way to happiness, rather than recognizing its potential presence in our current lives. Consider the phenomenon known as the hedonic treadmill, or hedonic adaptation. This psychological concept suggests that humans have a tendency to return to a relatively stable level of happiness despite major positive or negative life events or changes. We achieve a long-desired goal, feel an initial surge of joy, but soon adapt to this new reality, and our baseline happiness returns. The target for happiness then shifts to the next desired object or state, perpetuating the cycle. This isn't to say that goals and ambitions are inherently detrimental. They provide direction, purpose, and can lead to profound growth. However, when our fundamental sense of well-being is contingent upon achieving these external markers, we place our happiness in a precarious and often elusive position. The question then becomes, can we uncouple our inner contentment from the relentless pursuit of external validation and future states? Ancient philosophies, developed through centuries of human experience and introspection, offer potent counter-narratives to this modern predicament. They suggest that happiness is not so much about changing our external circumstances as it is about cultivating a particular internal state, a way of perceiving and relating to the world, and to ourselves, that is available in the here and now, irrespective of our external achievements or possessions. The Epicurean school of thought, often misunderstood as promoting hedonistic indulgence, actually championed a far more nuanced and sustainable form of happiness. Epicurus taught that the greatest pleasure is ataraxia, a state of serene calmness, tranquility and freedom from fear and anxiety, and aponia, the absence of bodily pain. This was not about chasing intense, fleeting pleasures, but about cultivating a stable state of contentment. For Epicurus, happiness was found in simple pleasures, the companionship of friends, the enjoyment of simple food and drink safety, and crucially, the reduction of desires. He argued that many of our anxieties stem from unnatural and unnecessary desires for wealth, power, fame, which are insatiable and ultimately lead to turmoil. By limiting our desires to what is natural and necessary, we could more easily achieve a state of lasting satisfaction and peace. Friendship was paramount in Epicurean philosophy. Of all the things which wisdom provides to make life entirely happy, much the greatest is the possession of friendship, Epicurus wrote. Meaningful connections with others, built on trust, mutual respect, and shared simple pleasures, were considered essential for a flourishing life. This contrasts sharply with a purely individualistic pursuit of happiness often emphasized today. The Epicurean ideal was not a life of extravagant luxury, but one of prudent simplicity, where the absence of disturbance and the presence of cherished company formed the bedrock of a happy existence. It's a call to find joy in what we have, in the quiet moments, and in the richness of human connection, rather than in the endless pursuit of what we lack. This is a profound shift from acquisition to appreciation. Perhaps the profound joy we seek is not in acquiring more, but in appreciating fully. Stoicism, another influential Hellenistic philosophy, offers a different yet complementary path to inner resilience and contentment. Founded by Zeno of Citium, Stoicism teaches the development of self-control and fortitude as a means of overcoming destructive emotions. It posits that virtue, or excellence of character, is the only true good, and that external events are, by their nature, neutral. It is our judgments about them that cause distress. A core tenet of Stoicism is the dichotomy of control, differentiating between what we can change and what we cannot. We have control over our own thoughts, judgments, desires, and actions, but not over external events, the actions of others, or our ultimate fate. By focusing our energy solely on what is within our power, our inner world, and our responses, we can achieve a state of apatheia or equanimity, a clear-minded tranquility. Gratitude is a cornerstone of Stoic practice. Rather than lamenting what we lack or what has gone wrong, Stoics advocated for appreciating what we have, right now. This includes not just material possessions, but our faculties, our relationships, and even challenges, which are seen as opportunities to practice virtue. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has, said Epictetus. The Stoic concept of preferred indifference acknowledges that things like health, wealth, and reputation are preferable to their opposites, but they are ultimately indifferent to our virtue and thus to our true happiness. True well-being, or eudaimonia, comes from living a life of reason and virtue in accordance with nature. This perspective allows one to pursue external goods reasonably, without attaching one's core happiness to their attainment or loss. By cultivating an inner citadel of resilience, focusing on our responses, practicing gratitude, and understanding the transient nature of external fortunes, Stoicism provides a powerful framework for finding a robust and stable form of happiness, one that is less dependent on the whims of fate and more rooted in our own character and choices. It is a happiness that can coexist with difficulty and adversity. Eastern traditions, particularly Buddhism, offer profound insights into the nature of suffering and the path to liberation, which can be understood as a deep and abiding happiness or well-being. A central teaching is that suffering dukkha arises from craving, attachment, and aversion, our desires for things to be different from how they are, our clinging to pleasant experiences, and our resistance to unpleasant ones. The solution, according to Buddhist philosophy, is not necessarily to eliminate all desires, but to cultivate non-attachment and wisdom, understanding the impermanent nature of all things anicca, and the illusory nature of a fixed self anatta. By seeing things as they truly are, without the distortions of our cravings and aversions, we can free ourselves from the cycle of suffering and dissatisfaction. Mindfulness, or present moment awareness, is a key practice in many Buddhist traditions. It involves paying attention to our thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, and the surrounding environment, intentionally and non-judgmentally. By anchoring ourselves in the present, we are less likely to be swept away by regrets about the past or anxieties about the future, which are significant sources of unhappiness. The present moment, when fully experienced, often reveals a surprising richness and peace. This emphasis on present moment awareness doesn't mean ignoring planning or learning from the past. Rather, it's about not living in these mental projections. When we are truly present, we can appreciate the simple act of breathing, the taste of food, the warmth of the sun, the presence of a loved one, small, everyday occurrences that often hold the seeds of genuine contentment, overlooked in our rush towards an imagined better future. What these diverse philosophical traditions suggest, in their unique ways, is that a significant component of happiness is an internal skill, a cultivated perspective. It's less about what happens to us, and more about how we relate to what happens. It's about finding a sense of peace and sufficiency that is not wholly dependent on the ever-shifting sands of external circumstances or the attainment of future goals. The hum of ordinary life often conceals extraordinary depths of peace, if we only listen. So, how might we begin to recognize if we are, perhaps, already happy, or at least possess the foundational elements of happiness, obscured by societal noise and future-chasing habits? It begins with a conscious shift in attention, a deliberate turning inwards, and a reevaluation of what truly constitutes a good and fulfilling life, beyond the conventional metrics of success and accumulation. One practical step is to actively practice gratitude, not as a fleeting thought, but as a sustained focus. This involves regularly taking inventory of the good things in our lives, however small or seemingly insignificant. It could be our health, the love of family or friends, a roof over our heads, the beauty of nature, or even the simple fact of our existence. This practice retrains the mind to notice abundance rather than scarcity. Another approach is to consciously savor simple pleasures. This means slowing down and fully experiencing the enjoyable aspects of everyday life that we often rush through. The taste of a favorite meal, the warmth of a shower, the sound of music, a walk in nature. By bringing mindful attention to these moments, we amplify their positive impact and realize that joy can be found in the ordinary, not just the extraordinary. Cultivating enoughness is also crucial. This involves challenging the deeply ingrained belief that we always need more money, more possessions, more achievements to be happy. It's about defining what is truly sufficient for a good life and finding contentment within those boundaries. This doesn't mean abandoning ambition, but rather ensuring ambition serves well-being, instead of undermining it through constant dissatisfaction. Pay attention to moments of flow, those times when you are so deeply engrossed in an activity that you lose track of time and self-consciousness. These activities, whether work-related, creative pursuits, or hobbies, are often intrinsically rewarding and contribute significantly to a sense of fulfillment and happiness, independent of external rewards. Recognizing and making space for flow states can be a powerful way to tap into existing sources of joy. Notice the quality of your relationships. As Epicurus highlighted, genuine human connection is a vital source of happiness. Are there people in your life with whom you feel safe, understood, and valued? Nurturing these connections, investing time and presence in them, can reveal a bedrock of support and joy that might be taken for granted amidst the busyness of life. The simple act of being truly present with another can be profoundly fulfilling. Reflect on your inherent worth, separate from your achievements or external validation. Many wisdom traditions emphasize an intrinsic value in simply being human, in possessing consciousness and the capacity for love, growth, and connection. If you can begin to access a sense of self-acceptance that is not contingent on performance, a quiet, stable happiness may already be available to you, independent of life's ups and downs. Consider moments of peace or contentment you might have dismissed as insignificant. Perhaps it was the quiet satisfaction after completing a task, a moment of stillness watching a sunset, or the simple comfort of a familiar routine. These small pockets of well-being, when acknowledged and strung together, can form a substantial tapestry of happiness that we fail to recognize when we're only looking for grand, ecstatic experiences. It's also valuable to examine our definition of happiness. Is it a constant state of elation and excitement? Or could it be a more subtle, enduring sense of well-being, resilience, and inner peace? If our definition is too narrow or unrealistic, we may overlook the genuine happiness that is already present in a quieter, more stable form. The peace that passeth understanding is not loud, but it is profound. The mind has a well-documented negativity bias. It tends to focus more on negative experiences, threats, and shortcomings than on positive ones. This was an evolutionary advantage for survival, but in modern life, it can obscure our perception of existing happiness. Consciously counteracting this bias by intentionally focusing on and savoring positive experiences can help recalibrate our perception. We are conditioned to look outwards for validation, for the keys to our inner state. This exploration is not about denying pain, suffering, or legitimate reasons for unhappiness. Life inevitably brings challenges. However, it is about questioning whether we also possess, simultaneously, sources of joy, peace, and contentment that we are not fully acknowledging or appreciating. It is possible for gratitude and sorrow, contentment and striving to coexist. Ultimately, recognizing that you might already be happy or have access to profound contentment is an act of profound self-awareness and intellectual humility. It requires us to pause the relentless cultural narrative of striving and insufficiency, and to listen deeply to the quieter whispers of our own present experience, where unexpected treasures of well-being may lie hidden in plain sight. The happiness we seek is often not a grand, declarative statement, but a subtle background hum of well-being. It's the quiet confidence that we can handle what life brings, the gentle appreciation for the present moment, and the deep satisfaction found in connection and simple existence. This hum might be drowned out by louder ambitions or anxieties, but it may well be there, patiently waiting to be heard. Think of times you felt truly at peace, even if fleetingly. What characterized those moments? Often, they involve a letting go of striving, a simple presence, or a connection with something larger than oneself, nature, art, another person. These are not happiness achievements, but rather states of being that arise when conditions are right, and those conditions often involve less doing and more allowing. If we cease to measure our happiness solely by external yardsticks, wealth, status, or even a checklist of positive experiences, we might find that an internal sense of okayness, of fundamental soundness, has been with us all along. This isn't complacency, but a foundation of contentment upon which genuine growth and contribution can be built, rather than a frantic escape from perceived lack. Perhaps the greatest shift is from seeing happiness as an acquisition to seeing it as a realization. It's not something new to be added, but something timeless to be uncovered within our own being and our present circumstances. The conditions for this realization are often simpler than we imagine, requiring not more effort in the world, but more stillness within ourselves. The Stoic Epictetus advised, "It is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments about events." This highlights the profound power of our perception. If we are interpreting our current circumstances through a lens of lack, or constantly comparing them to an idealized future, we may fail to see the inherent good, the simple pleasures, or the quiet strengths that already exist in our lives. Consider your daily routines. Are they merely chores to be endured, or can they become opportunities for mindfulness and even subtle enjoyment? The preparation of a meal, the walk to work, the quiet moments before sleep, these are all part of the fabric of our lives. By infusing them with presence and appreciation, we weave threads of contentment into the everyday, rather than waiting for sporadic, big, happy events. The expectation that life should be a continuous ascent of joy is a modern myth that can cause immense dissatisfaction. Real life includes a spectrum of emotions and experiences. True contentment might not be the absence of difficulty, but the ability to navigate challenges with resilience and maintain an underlying sense of peace and gratitude, knowing that this too shall pass, and that good remains. If you were to list, not your unmet desires, but your current blessings, tangible and intangible, what would that list look like? Often, the things we take for granted are the very things someone else is desperately praying for. This simple act of reframing, of acknowledging our existing wealth in all its forms, can be a powerful antidote to the pervasive feeling of not enough. Could the constant striving for an idealized future obscure the beauty of the now? The pursuit of grand, external happiness can sometimes feel like trying to grasp water. The harder we clench, the more it slips away. But the quiet contentment born of presence, gratitude, and self-acceptance is more like a deep, calm pool within. It doesn't need to be chased. It needs to be settled into, recognized, and appreciated for the life-giving sustenance it already provides. The constant bombardment of idealized lives on social media and in advertising can create a false sense of what normal or happy looks like. This curated reality often highlights only the peaks, omitting the everyday struggles and simple contentments that constitute most of real life. Recognizing this manufactured reality can free us to appreciate our own authentic, uncurated existence. What if happiness isn't about feeling good all the time, but about feeling real all the time and being at peace with that reality? This includes accepting the full spectrum of human emotion without judgment, knowing that even challenging feelings are temporary and part of the human experience. This acceptance itself can be a profound source of peace, a foundation deeper than fleeting joy. The ancient philosophers understood that true wealth is not about having great possessions, but about having few wants. When our desires are simple and aligned with our true needs, contentment is far more easily found and maintained. This isn't a call for asceticism necessarily, but for a conscious examination of our desires. Which ones truly serve our well-being, and which ones are learned, insatiable burdens. Small acts of kindness and connection, both given and received, often generate a surprisingly potent and lasting sense of well-being. These moments affirm our shared humanity and create ripples of positivity that benefit both the giver and receiver. Often, the happiness we seek by getting can be more readily found by giving in simple, heartfelt ways. The human capacity for adaptation is immense. We adapt to both positive and negative changes. This means that while the thrill of a new achievement fades, so too can the sting of a disappointment. Understanding this adaptability can free us from desperately clinging to highs or deeply fearing lows, fostering a more stable, underlying contentment with the ongoing flow of life. Consider the feeling of home, not just a physical place, but a sense of belonging, safety, and ease. Can you cultivate that feeling within yourself, regardless of external circumstances? If so, you carry a portable sanctuary of contentment with you. This inner home is built from self-acceptance, resilience, and a trust in your ability to navigate life. We often postpone joy, telling ourselves, "I'll be happy when." But what if we inverted that? "I am content now, and I will also pursue this goal." Separating our fundamental well-being from the achievement of future desires allows us to enjoy the journey, not just fixate on the destination, and to realize that the journey itself, lived presently, is where life unfolds. The pressure to be extraordinary can sometimes prevent us from appreciating the profound beauty of an ordinary life well lived, a life of simple integrity, kindness, meaningful work, however humble, and cherished connections. These are the bedrock of sustainable happiness, often overlooked in the quest for remarkable achievements that may not, in themselves, deliver lasting joy. Take a moment to simply breathe. Notice the sensation of air entering and leaving your body. This fundamental act, so often unconscious, is a constant anchor to the present moment, a reminder of life itself. In this simple awareness, without needing to change or achieve anything, can a flicker of peace, of already present well-being, be felt. Ancient wisdom whispers of a happiness found not in having, but in being. If happiness is a state of being rather than a collection of external circumstances, then the primary work is internal. It involves cultivating gratitude, presence, acceptance, and a wise perspective on desires and aversions. These are skills, and like any skill, they can be developed through practice, revealing the contentment that may have been obscured but never truly absent. The belief that "I am not happy" can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. It directs our attention to evidence of lack and filters out evidence of contentment. What if we experimented with the hypothesis, "I have access to happiness right now"? How might that change what we notice, what we appreciate, and how we experience our current reality? The joy of connection, the peace of nature, the satisfaction of learning, the comfort of safety, the simple pleasure of being alive and healthy. These are profound sources of happiness that are often already available to many, at least to some degree. The secret may not be in finding new sources, but in deeply valuing and fully experiencing the ones we already possess. Perhaps the most radical act in a culture of perpetual striving is to declare, even if just to oneself, "This is enough. I am enough. What I have is enough." This doesn't foreclose future growth or change, but it grounds us in a present reality of sufficiency from which all else can unfold with less desperation and more genuine appreciation. The greatest treasures are often hidden in plain sight, veiled by our assumptions and the relentless noise of a world that profits from our dissatisfaction. By quieting the external clamor and gently turning our attention inward, and to the simple realities of our present lives, we may discover that the happiness we've been chasing has been our faithful companion all along. Summary of key takeaways. We've explored how happiness might not be a future acquisition, but a present realization. Ancient wisdom from Epicureans, Stoics, and Buddhists guides us towards appreciating simple pleasures, cultivating inner resilience and gratitude, and finding peace in present moment awareness. The hedonic treadmill reminds us that external pursuits often yield fleeting joy. Key takeaway: recognizing existing happiness involves shifting our focus from lack to abundance, from future chasing to appreciating the now. Practices like gratitude, savoring simple joys, defining enough, and fostering genuine connections can unveil the contentment that may already be woven into our lives, obscured by societal conditioning and our own mental habits. Insightful reflection. The journey to recognizing our inherent well-being is less about adding new things to our lives and more about subtracting the illusions that obscure what's already present. It's an unlearning of detrimental conditioning and a relearning of how to simply be, to appreciate, and to find peace in the inherent goodness of our existence, even amidst its imperfections. Concluding thought: this isn't a definitive answer, but an invitation to a profound personal inquiry. The possibility that you are already happy or possess the deep wellsprings of contentment within you is a revolutionary idea in a world that constantly tells you otherwise. It shifts the locus of control from the external to the internal, empowering you to discover peace irrespective of circumstance. Perhaps happiness is not a singular, distant star to be reached, but the entire constellation of small, warm lights that make up the sky of our present lives, if only we adjust our gaze to see them. The peace you seek might indeed be the peace you already, unknowingly, embody.